Hello and welcome to Spectator TV. I'm James Heale and I'm joined today by royal commentator and author Alexander Larman. Now Alex, it's been a big week or so for royal news, and principally of course we've got this rather strange trip by Harry and Meghan to Colombia. Tell us more on why they went there.
Hi James, well it's nice to be on Spectator TV again. Now, I don't know about you, but I saw pictures of Harry and Meghan in Colombia, and I thought it was all a very bad joke, because Colombia, let's face it, is not the kind of place that traditionally members of the royal family, even ex-members of the royal family, have gone to, because it has many virtues as a country, but let's face it, it's mainly associated with drugs, guns, and general crime. So you'd be thinking, why exactly are Harry and Meghan going there? And then, of course, you look at the last place they went to, which was Nigeria, which is another country associated with drugs, guns, and general crime. Now, I put it to you that Harry and Meghan, for all of their many failings, are not people who are intimately involved with drugs, guns, and general crime. So the question comes instead as to why they are staging these quasi-royal tours in countries that would never, ever have been visited on traditional royal tours. And I can offer you two different solutions. The first solution is that they're bored, something to do. I mean, obviously, it's more hazardous than sitting around in Montecito making jam, but you get out, you get photographed, you are able to actually, be on the front pages again. Or the second reason, and I mean, I know this is going it quite strong, is that they actually think they're making a difference. And the question that I have to ask is, why do they think they're making a difference? Because I think that ever since their quasi-abdication, which is now nearly, 4.5 years ago, they've really struggled to find any kind of place in society. What we've seen over and over again is we've seen the Netflix documentary, we've seen the Oprah Winfrey interview, we've seen the publication of Spare. In every single case, there's been this massive explosion of hype, this massive explosion of publicity, and then it's disappeared into nothing almost immediately when people realise that most of what they're saying is either untrue or it's self-publicising a little more. So that's why they have to stage these ridiculous tours of these countries that people would not willingly go to. But what's so particularly strange in Colombia is that if you look at all these pictures, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of security people looking after them, and virtually nobody showing up to their events, because obviously in Colombia there is not the same kind of reverence for the British royal family or ex-members of the British royal family, to say nothing of the former cast of Suits than you would expect to find in other parts of the Western world. So you start wondering where's coming next. I mean, perhaps the outer reaches of the Antarctic, because it's got to a stage now that Harry and Meghan don't stand for anything. It is irrelevance writ large. And so it's just ego, and that's the only possible reason that I can think of for these ridiculous self-aggrandising tours.
What exactly were they doing on this tour? I mean, I read there was some meeting between Harry and some others involved in the Invictus Games, but other than that project, I mean, what else were they doing down in Colombia?
I don't really know, because the thing is that what they don't have anymore is any kind of functioning publicity department. Obviously, their private secretary quit just before the start of the tour, which he had organised. And as soon as that fell apart, there was a real sense that you don't know what the point of any of this is, because, I mean, yes, we can say that Harry cares about the Invictus Games. I think we've got the idea behind that one. But you can't keep on going to these countries and expect that people are going to think, oh yeah, Harry, he's a top man, he's all about Invictus. There isn't really any point to it. I mean, the only thing I can think is that there is this addiction to being seen in public, this addiction to being treated as they think they ought to be treated, but they're never going to be able to go to, say, France or Switzerland or Japan and have this kind of treatment, because obviously what they have done is they have left the royal family, not that Meghan was ever in it, but Harry certainly was, and they have left the perks and privileges that come with that. And I think they found it very difficult to actually adjust to irrelevance. Hence these ridiculous tours to countries which you really didn't want to go to. I mean, sorry if anyone from Nigeria or Colombia is listening to this, because I can't imagine that they would be particularly pleased. But it's also just the case that you look at Harry and the man looks trapped. I mean, as he gets older, he looks increasingly unhappy being the position that he's in. And I can't help thinking that this is not how he saw his life panning out when he decided to stop being a member of the royal family. I mean, if you'd said to him in 2020, Harry, 4.5 years, will be going around Colombia, I can't imagine he would have said, oh, whoopity-doo, hooray. I think he would have said, oh, is that it? Is that what my standing of the world's going to be? So I think that, the serious question to be asked is, what's the point of them? What's going to come next? I mean, what is the end game of all this?
That is indeed the question. And of course, helping them on that discovery journey to finding their purpose won't be their chief of staff who left this week. I believe the 18th member of staff to have left since they moved out to America. I think you write online, Alex, that to lose one staff may be regarded as misfortune, but to lose 18 looks slightly careless. Why are so many people either being fired or quitting their roles working for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex?
I mean, why would you work for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? I mean, why on earth would you want to do that? In a sense, I mean, I can't say any more than that. I mean, you see what they're like. You've seen the publicity. You've seen her temperament, especially. You've seen whatever Meghan wants, Meghan gets. Why would you want, for a salary, to put yourself in that position? There are so many other jobs you could do, high-level corporations, working for actors, working for public figures. Why would you want to work for Duke and Duchess of Sussex? It is not a job worth doing. I mean, all I can say is that the WhatsApp group for the ex-Sussex squad must be a very lively place, and every time somebody quits, another member joins for chat. But the trouble that I have is that it's very hard to take Harry and Meghan seriously, because when there was the Oprah Winfrey interview, when there's recollections may vary stuff, there was a genuine sense they were posing an existential threat to the monarchy as it stood, because we'd never really had, I mean, even with Diana, we didn't have the sense of these people working from within to bring down the British monarchy. And I think that there was a real interest, especially for somebody like me, who is by no means a fully paid up monarchist, but somebody who observes the workings of it with a kind of a historian's fascination. But what the royal family must be relieved about these days is that because Harry and Meghan have gone to the well so many times, there's nothing left anymore. And the fact that 18 members of their staff have quit shows you what a horrible work environment it must be, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what their point is. So they're going to hire all these people in the expectation that Brown Sussex can be given a refresh, that somebody can drag them into the 21st century. And it hasn't worked. There hasn't been any sense whatsoever of people actually managing to do what they've been paid to do. So I'm not at all surprised that the 18th person's gone. And the question is, but where does it lead to? I mean, what happens in the end? Because you can't keep on hiring members of staff and firing members of staff. But it's funny, actually, because I had a conversation earlier today with a friend who made a very sensible point that Harry has said that it's too dangerous for Meghan to visit Britain because obviously the security that he's been trying to pay the Metropolitan Police to provide on a freelance basis has not been made available to her. Now, I would suggest that London might have its ups and downs and its dodgier parts, but if Britain is too unsafe for Meghan but Colombia's fine, that shows some very strange attitudes to what safety actually is.
Sorry to interrupt the show, but if you enjoy what we do here at Spectator TV, then why not subscribe to the magazine as well? If you subscribe today, you get 12 weeks for just £12, plus a free £20 John Lewis and Waitrose gift card. You can sign up at spectator.co.uk/TV offer.
And you make the point as well there about staff retention, and to strike in contrast with the royals, of course, who for many courtiers worked there for decades, often not a huge amount of money, but the loyalty which the family inspires in their staff is something that's often remarked upon. You're also there talking about the future. I mean, there's been reports over the past couple of weeks which suggest that when it comes to Prince William's coronation eventually as king, Harry will not be intending of that. I mean, where do you think this whole current state of things is leaving the relationship between the two brothers? Because, of course, he came back to do the unveiling of the statue of their late mother, Diana, but there hasn't been much contact, it seems. So talk us through how that relationship's panning out and the kind of likely looking forward way in which they're going to be working together or not come the coronation.
They haven't spoken since the late Queen's death in September 2022, and back then it was the most perfunctory of conversations. I think that the publication of Spare and all the revelations or allegations about Prince William in that book destroyed any relationship that the two of them could ever have. And I suspect that from now on they will not be in a room together. I can't imagine there will ever be any kind of face-to-face conversation, because what you must remember about members of the royal family is they do not forgive and they do not forget. They are rather like some psychotic elephants in that regard. So what you've got is a sense that William is going to be somebody who is going to look at these incredibly embarrassing and very personal details that Harry's put out into the public, and he's not going to sit there and be sanguine about it, because he has a short temper and he's a very unforgiving character. So what you're going to see instead is a sense of Harry is already been cast out into outer Siberia reputationally, but there's never going to be any attempt on his brother's part to try and reconcile with him. And so, yes, of course, there'll be times in the future when Harry has to be in the country, obviously not accompanied by Meghan because the country's not safe for her. But I cannot imagine there's going to be any kind of reconciliation. I mean, even at such time as King Charles dies, because the rift is too deep now. I mean, you look back at historical precedent, and the rift between the Duke of Windsor and King George VI was fairly deep as well, and they didn't speak for years on end. So there is certainly precedent in this regard.
And of course, we were talking about brothers. The other relationship under the spotlight is the relationship between the King and his brother Prince Andrew, who we understand from reports is going to have potentially his security removed and may have to move out of Royal Lodge as well. What is the relationship like these days? And obviously we all remember, of course, the infamous Newsnight interview, I think 5 years ago now, and since the late Queen's death, and there's definitely been a different relationship between Prince Andrew and the principal royal within the family. I mean, how does that relationship pan out, do you think, Alex?
Well, what I think was so important was to remember that, for whatever reason, Prince Andrew was the Queen's favourite child. So he was protected and nurtured far beyond the point that, say, Prince Edward would have been. And after the Queen died, I think Andrew must have known that that was game over for him in terms of having any kind of standing in the royal family. But Charles has a very fine line to tread, because on the one hand, I'm sure he wants nothing to do with Andrew. I'm sure he does not want any of the embarrassment the Duke of York has been heaping on the family. But on the other hand, he's still a member of the royal family, and the royal family is shrinking, because we don't have Harry anymore. Obviously, we don't have Meghan, which never really was involved. But also, we have the fact that the Princess of Wales is recovering from cancer, and she's made a few public appearances this year, but very, very few and very, very sparing. And there is no timetable for her to be back, probably conducting events, to be a working member of the Royals. So there's very few key members. But also, lest we forget, the King is still undergoing treatment for cancer as well. I mean, it is not a royal family firing on all cylinders. And so the fact that the Duke of York has any kind of public appearance, because he appeared a few months ago at a funeral swaggering in front of everyone as if he owned the place. I mean, I think a lot of people, including senior members of the royal family, would prefer that he just left the country and never bothered us again. But you can't do that, because once you're in the firm, you can't leave unless you do what Prince Harry's done, which is to storm off and cause all sorts of difficulties. So, again, where does it end? What's the end game? And the answer is, I don't know, and they don't know either.
Well, thank you, Alex, for joining us on Spectator TV today.